Mazeroski has hit a 1-0 pitch over the left field fence at Ford Field to win the 1960 World Series.
Broadcasting from Tampa Bay, Florida, it's Sports Talk Live. I'm Big Ed Edwards, along with the captain, Matt Bruce. Absolutely just off of a 3-game sweep over the Chicago White Sox, which we'll talk about later. But the Yankees and the Red Sox now tied in the loss column with 36 losses. Boston one more win, so actually a half-game lead. But boy, oh boy, since the All-Star break, it's been Yankees. Number 400. Boy, he's such a weapon to have, and the Yankees have him. And, basically when you go to the ninth inning, you know that, 18 out of 19 times the game's over.
Pitcher Ray Halladay.
Right, and in fact, that game is just completed as I look at our screen here, and so now Toronto only 3.5 out as they've won today as we broadcast the game, so they're hanging right in there. J.P. Riccardi, their general manager, making a lot of moves in the offseason, and it's paid off, and they're contending and hanging right in there with the Yankees and Boston, which those moves were intended to do.
A home run.
And that's his home area. He grew up in that area, and so he'll fit in right in there, and that's what Houston needed was one more big stick in that lineup, and he's certainly going to help them. And Baltimore and Tampa Bay, we'll have to see as the season goes on whether Tampa Bay can catch Baltimore, or in our preseason lineup when we went through the teams, I said if one team might slump and have a bad second half, it could be Baltimore. And so we'll just have to see what the Baltimore Orioles actually do. The Tampa Bay Devil Rays going for youth. They're doing it the right way now. It may not reflect this year in the standings, but Tampa Bay is trying to build a good, strong, young nucleus for the future. And in 2 or 3 years, they'll be contender also if they do it right. They already went years ago with the way to try to get the older free agents. Didn't work. Now they're going about it with the new management in the right way. And, and I think their manager, Joe Madden, is a good choice right now for to have the young players there and guide them for the next few years. And so we'll have to see how it looks with the Devil Rays. Baltimore, I don't know about. They were the elite of the American League for all those many years. And, it just seems that they're just stagnated down there in the second half.
Are playing almost 500 baseball.
Yeah, they're playing decent in their last, they're about 2-3 weeks. That team was horrendous. That was the team everyone said, might have 110 losses, but Buddy Bell's held it together. They've changed general managers, but it wasn't Alan Baird's fault. That team just was a team that wasn't spending money and having some poor drafts and making some, unusual trades, and then that's what happens. They were once the class of the American League, and Kansas City's hit on rough times, and they're going to have to try to rebuild, or they may need to bring in a co-owner or offer some shares or whatever it is, because you have to put money into the team nowadays if you expect to win. Now, as we were talking about, Detroit and the White Sox up top there, I believe that Detroit and the White Sox will make the playoffs. I'm not sure if Detroit can hold on and keep the White Sox out of first place or not, but I believe one team will be the Central Division winner and one team will be the wild card winner, and then the division winner from the East and West will make the playoffs. So if they continue to play like they do, both Detroit and the White Sox, even though the White Sox have had a little slump in New York for the last 3 days, I think they'll be right in the playoffs. And what a story. The commissioner, Bud Selleck, considered the Detroit Tigers to be the story in Major League Baseball this year, because who would have thought? You have to hand it, we say it over and over again, but you have to hand it to Jimmy Leland, who's managing that team after Dave Dombrowski moved from the Marlins over to the Tigers and put it all together in a span of like 3 years. It's a total success story. When, Matt, when people talk about, I'm going to bring this guy over here to manage it, and I'm going to bring this guy in as the general manager, and this is what we're going to do, how often does that actually happen? Hardly ever. But in this case, it has, and it's the second time for Dave Dombrowski.
Yeah.
He did it with the Marlins. That's right. Yes, you're right, Matt. I picked Oakland in the preseason, and I thought they'd take off. They had that stretch where they won 8 out of 10. They came all the way rearing up from third place, but they've cooled off now, so maybe not. But I think Oakland is by far the most talented team in that division. But anyway, they're only up 1 on Texas, only 2 on the Angels, and it may be even less as the Angels are still playing the Devil Rays as we broadcast. Seattle, who everyone thought would be horrible in last place, well, they're in last place. They're in 4th place, but they're only, they're only 4.5 out. Anything could happen in that division.
Just been,
it's funny how some people respond, because during the All-Star break, people were talking about what happened to Mark Teixeira, and nothing really happened. He just wasn't having a tremendous year. Everyone's become accustomed to. He was having an okay year. Well, he comes out, he has 3 homers right after that. So sometimes, like you say, sometimes you got to give a little kick in the pants to some people to get him going. And boy, oh boy, he's on fire, as you said this week. People are going to start treating him like they used to treat Bonds, and be passing him every time he comes up, because I'm watching all week the highlights. Every time I see him, he's in a homer or a double. He's driving in key runs, so he is on fire. And boy, that could really help Texas. Yes, they are. It's still at 12.
12, okay.
Yeah, but Atlanta has made a little bit of a surge.
In that.
Yeah, they were fortunate. Now, the Mets have clear sailing. All they have to do is play decent the rest of the way. But the big question is, what are they going to do for the playoffs? They've got to make sure their pitching's healthy. Their lineups are already good. And there's a lot of talks with the Mets, and I haven't seen, about trades. And I haven't seen in a long time a team that's in first place at the break by 12, 13 games talking so much about trades and what we can do. So, the Mets are looking to really shore themselves up and really take it as they move on to the playoffs. You know what? And Joe Girardi has done a great job. They're 10 games under 500, but remember, this was the team that everyone thought was going to be by far the worst team in Major League Baseball. Everyone thought then would come Kansas City, but forget the Marlins. They've, gotten rid of all their star players. They have the youngest team in the league. And, this may be the first time I ever said that, a guy should be considered somewhat, at least, for the Manager of the Year award when he's 10 under 500. But Joe Girardi has done a great job. And now both these guys have, Matt, have been having a successful, I'd say, about 10, 12 games. Well, what happened 10, 12 games ago? You spoke to them both at the Trop. I think you inspired both Bobby Cox and Joe Girardi.
It was a hair joke.
That's right. Anyway, And you heard it first here about a few weeks ago. I had told our listeners that I was talking with a guy who I know who's inside the Mets organization in the front office, and they made a pitch right then, before anyone even knew of it, for Dontrell Willis. And boy, if they get him, and they're going to have to battle the Yankees and a few other teams, but if they get that one more solid pitcher, they're clear sailing. That avoids any kind of a slump whatsoever you could possibly have when you go to the playoff series later in the year. You go in with 4 strong pitchers, you have it made. Right now, he's an interesting thing with him. Remember, he had a little problem with Jimmy Bowden, the GM of the Washington Nationals in the preseason. He didn't want to play left field. Well, finally he agreed. He went out there. He felt it would hurt him because he's easily by far the best hitting second baseman in the major leagues. Well, it turns out he can play left field pretty decently, and now that's upped his value. So when he hits free agency, he's going to be the number 1 free agent. He's going to make a ton of bucks because he's multi-dimensional. He can go either in the outfield or in the infield, and he hits like he always has. And, he was a New York Yankee, played second best. Now they have Robinson Cano, but, they certainly need outfielders right now with Sheffield and Matsui out. And I know he'd love to come back to New York. And so we have to see that happens because, Jim Bowden's going to have to do something. You're in last place with Washington. You can't let Soriano just sit there and at the end of the year lose him and get nothing in return. He's got to get a few good, decent players. And the Mets have all those great minor leaguers. That may work out well in the Dontrell Willis trade that they're working on. But, the Yankees farm system's a little questionable, but the Mets are the team that has all the good young rookies. Yeah, they've won their last 4 now. That game just completed. Okay. They've won their 4th. They had the big trade earlier in the week, Matt. They got Gary Majowski and Bill Bray. And their pitching has been horrendous. Their relief pitching all year long. That's been their problem. They've blown more saves and more tie games than any team in all of baseball. And so the management jumped and made a decision that we're going to continue to be going 500 or losing going 4-6, and we got to put a stop to it. So they gave up 2 key players in Austin Kearns and in Lopez, 2 everyday players, and shipped them off to Washington and got these pitchers, and it's paid off. They also got Royce Clayton, which will really help defensively at shortstop. He's, a long-time player, played with the Cardinals and some other teams. And so, the ownership, Bob Castellani with the Reds in preseason, when I met him, he said everything that the new owners do. But, he means it. This guy's going for it, and he's going to make, whatever decisions and moves that they have to make. And they're going to try to at least, get a wild card spot and get in the playoffs. Welcome to Sports Talk Live on the IBC Radio Network. They got Gary Majowski and Bill Bray, and their pitching has been horrendous. Their relief pitching all year long. That's been their problem. They've blown more saves and more tie games than any team in all of baseball. And so the management jumped and made a decision that we're going to continue to be going 500 or losing going 4-6, and we got to put a stop to it. So they gave up 2 key players in Austin Kearns and in Lopez, 2 everyday players, and shipped them off to Washington and got these pitchers, and it's paid off. They also got Royce Clayton, which will really help defensively at shortstop. He's, a long-time player, played with the Cardinals and some other teams. And so, the ownership, Bob Castellani with the Reds in preseason, when I met him, he said everything that the new owners do. But, he means it. This guy's going for it, and he's going to make, whatever decisions and moves that they have to make. And they're going to try to at least, get a wild card spot and get in the playoffs. Absolutely. The fastest 30 minutes in sports broadcasting. Have a great week.